Are we ready to go? Everyone ready? Yeah? Cool. Let's go. So, first of all, just before starting, I want to let you know that this is not going to be a tech presentation. Know this, right? It's not going to be a tech presentation. It's not going to be focused on tech. So bear with me. Don't ask what? Someone asked me. Who was it? Cool. So, this is me with screen glasses. I didn't need the screen glasses today, but I kept the mustache. With Agile Actors since 2015. I'm the Java chapter lead. And next to me,
Yeah, I'm Kostas. I'm software engineer, test infrastructure, chapter lead in Agile Actors.
problem is that Kostas has a photo which is from 2012. So
No, I think, yeah, but I'm still 26.
great. So a bit about coaching at Agile Actors. I don't know who was yesterday when we were presenting, Agile Actors as an organization. A bit of a reminder, we are structured in chapters, right? I mean, we don't do, as I said, we don't do products internally. We don't do projects internally. We do, our verticals are essentially our customers. Each professional within Agile Actors, they're part of a team, and that team is our customers' team. So Kostas, for example, he's a member of X team of one of our customers, and he's working together with quite a few people that can be either from Agile Actors or from our customer or from our customers' vendors. Okay, so we don't own the delivery process; they own the delivery process, and we just provide the professionals. We don't just provide, because our vision, like I said yesterday, is to have a way to continuously develop professionals. This is what we actually do. So coaching is essentially part of our DNA, because every professional within Agile Actors, they have someone with them, someone more experienced, who's able to coach them on things about their work, about the soft and technical skills, but also someone who works with them on their personal development plan. Okay, yeah, you can see, the front-end, back-end, UX, UI. Apologies for the QA, it's more than this.
Okay. We'll talk it later.
Okay, thank you. It is structured with a chapter lead. So, I'm the chapter lead of one of the horizontals. Kostas is another one. And together with our boards, we try to support our chapter in terms of, whatever they would like to be trained, to know, and we want to keep up, with the technology changes. So we want to help them a lot. So this is a bit of a coaching scheme. So because every professional within Agile Actors, they have someone as their coach, and they have also coaches when they become coaches. Okay, and from what you can see, we create coaching cells. So coaching cells can span across multiple customers, because it is, as I said, it's something like an horizontal. Keep this in mind. So why Spring Boot, okay? And what is Spring Boot? Disclaimer, we're not here to promote Spring Boot or Spring, okay? So Spring Boot, I don't know, have you ever used Spring Boot? Who has used Spring Boot? Oh, God, cool. Okay, who knows Spring Boot? Who specializes in Spring Boot? Thank you. Cool.
You?
I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So a bit about Spring Boot, right? When I first started dealing with Spring, back in my days in 2006, I guess, when I was writing code, Kostas, I remember that we had to deal with a framework, because Spring is also a framework that we use in order to build a web application. A web application doesn't really matter. And in most of the cases, and I can't recall up until which time period, we had to assemble something, a file that was a final deliverable of our application. And we always had to take this deliverable, right, and deploy it somewhere else on another software, okay? So one of the best additions, this is my way of bringing this onto the table, is that Spring Boot, what has managed to solve a bit, was the ability to embed your application server within your application. Another pattern that we used to have, this exists, right? Hasn't stopped, is that application servers, the way they were being used, you were able to deploy on them multiple applications, not only one. With that type, by having a Spring Boot application as an example, your deliverable, what you create as an artifact, is just one file that has, the application server inside. Meaning that you don't really have to, you can actually deploy on top of one application server multiple applications. This is not, as a solution, it doesn't fit everything, right? And when I say so, I mean, there are organizations out there that use commercial servers. Of course they do, because they need to, for several reasons. Perhaps, using Spring Boot, it's not a choice that they can actually do, okay? So I've outlined some, let's say, good stuff. It's about opinionated starter dependencies, okay? I will tell you about what opinionated actually means and why it's very useful. Some magic, of course it is magic, right? It works actually on its own. I mean, with some lines of code, you can, you can spin off an application. I mentioned the embedded application server, and some stuff, about production-ready features such as metrics, health checks, etc. Spring versus Spring Boot, I really like to ask this question, because there are main differences. I've also outlined here the Spring Boot main, features, but I think that one picture, says it all, right? I mean, Spring Framework is like having the ingredients, and Spring Boot is, tries to pull everything together and create this cake that me and Kostas like eating all the time. Cool. So I think that this is what we came, right, or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, Costa. Okay, cool. So what we would like to do today is to try and do a bit of a pair programming session here. We haven't done it before. I think that we've done it on a bit of a different taste, right?
Yeah.
So me and Kostas now, we're gonna play, a sketch, like a scenario. I've written the scenario down, of course. It is Saturday, right? Imagine that it is Saturday. It is Saturday. And, you have to deliver something because you were given, you were given a spec, you were given an API. We will develop, actually, we will not develop, but Kostas is delivering an API. And it is Saturday because you didn't, meet your timelines, but you have to deliver it to your manager, not me. Your heartbeat is very high, right? I mean, because it is the last time commit. You've tested, it works. You don't believe it works because when you see something working for the first time, you say, no, something is wrong there, but you have to deliver it, right? And we're here with Kostas. Kostas is delivering. I am, be his coach here, and we're gonna play this session to see what, comes out of it, okay? Let me. Can I help you, please?
Not yet.
There you go.
Okay, so for the purpose, of course, of the sketch, we are not going to implement right now. We have done some work, but I think that there are interesting parts that we can discuss on this. So regarding this, I think that it's very useful to showcase the use cases that we wanted to.
Do you need requirements, my friend? Okay. I will do it for you.
I guess that when you were coding, you used to have requirements.
Of course.
Oh,
So these are
Okay.
two simple acceptance criteria, okay? So we want to implement, an API. This was what was given to Kostas to implement. And Kostas, so when given that to a user?
Yeah, so it's a very basic, let's say, user functionality. So given I'm a user, when I request to retrieve a user by ID, then I can see the user's basic information, and of course we have some scenarios regarding retrieval users. So I was given this, so you, Alexis, are my coach. I want you to see what I have done so far, just to give me, some, let's say, insights on this. So I started this boot application. I used Maven this. I used the Spring Initializer website, so I downloaded and had there some structure ready. And actually started creating here a very basic layering with API, service, and repository. So I have created these APIs right here. Okay, so it's this one.
Okay, that's good.
So I have this get by ID. I have my REST controller here.
Okay.
Okay, and I have my user service and the service where it's I have this. Let's say sorry.
It's my trackpad, no worries.
Yeah, come on.
Can I help you?
Yep.
Thank you. Just be gentle. Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Be gentle again.
Okay, so here is my service. I don't know how you say it.
Okay. So, can I ask some questions?
yeah.
Cool. Why did you use a REST controller here? I mean, what is this?
This is an annotation,
Okay.
actually. I find it in the guide that you gave me the
Okay.
other day.
Okay.
So would you please help?
Okay. Cool.
Could you please help me?
Cool. Okay. First of all, it's not bad, right, to follow guides, but I get your point. So let me try and see, what is this actually is. Right? We will see the other stuff as well. So these are the bin stereotypes, right? So the framework itself, what it actually creates, and wants you to do, is use, all these different type of annotations in order to mark, let's say, your services in a way that is gonna be part of the Spring container. So you have to use an annotation, right? What's interesting, though, is that every single, annotation is essentially is a kind of extension of the component. Okay. And how are going
So
to
the
be?
base of all is the component,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And there is a way to say it as well. And the REST controller, in a particular REST controller, what it does, it also adds the annotation response body. Okay. Now, where this is? Cool. So the REST controller, if you see the source code of the REST controller, you're going to be able to see what I just mentioned, right? So, for me, something that I would propose to you is to sometimes read the code itself, okay? And go into the code to see what actually happens. Cool?
Right.
Great. Some other questions that I have here is, I can see, I like the way that you structure the API, right? I mean, /users. Why /users? I mean, I've seen difficult ways. No, I haven't seen, but I've been told of different ways of declaring an API. Why not, as an example, get user by ID/ID? Why can't we write this?
Yeah, I remember this one that we had discussed during our previous session, that it has to do with REST convention, so we didn't need to do something like this because it's already a GET request. So,
Perfect. Do you remember the spec?
not by heart.
Okay, let me remind you the spec. Okay, cool. So it is Open API. Okay, so the Open API specification. So if you open the API specification here, you're going to be able to read. Of course, guys, I'm not going to read it to the end, right? It's huge, but you can. So you can actually understand, right, why we structure, why we put the resource the way we put it on APIs. And it's going to give you a good reasoning to be able to explain not only the GET request, but also the POST, but also all the other stuff.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice.
Great. That's perfect. So let me remove this. Okay, it looks good. What other question do I have? Do you remember, I mean, there are scopes, right? I mean, there are scopes of within a Spring Boot application. Do you remember the scopes? I mean, what kind of scope the user service is going to be?
To be honest, I remember the default scope,
Okay.
which is singleton.
That's perfect. Costa.
But yeah.
You're a good coachee, right?
Yeah, I know.
I would love to have you for a coachee. So, yep. Let me go to the bin scopes. Oh, you saw it. So we have the singleton, which is a single instance of that bin. We've got the prototype that,
Yeah.
it is essentially that every time you request a, a bin, you're going to get a new one, okay? And these are for the application context and for, for the web scopes, you have a request for a single HTTP, a session for an HTTP session, application scope, and a web socket, one for a particular web socket. And like you said, the default scope is singleton.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. That's great. That's great. That's very true. So the other question I have, I need to smile as well, right? The other question I have is, okay, you run the application, okay? Why do we structure the code that way? I mean, how do you remember the design pattern? How do we call it? It works. I mean, everything is going to go into a container.
Um,
Remember?
can you help me?
Yeah, we use, we have added here one, one constructor. Okay, and this constructor.
Oh, okay, so you are referring to dependency injection?
Dependency injection.
Okay.
That's great. So what it does, do you recall?
I think that this is a pattern where the creation of the objects, if I remember correctly, is delegated to someone else, let's say.
Yes.
So it's something that can help us, let's say, build more modularized applications
That's
and
perfect.
more testable.
You will be senior one day. So, yeah, and this is part of a bigger thing, right? Do you remember how we call it, this bigger thing?
It's the inversion of control, right?
You're the great man, right?
Yeah.
So let me go now back to,
Going for lead.
you're going for a lead. So yeah, dependency injection, like Kostas has actually mentioned, is one of the biggest things, let's say, one of the greatest inventions of this framework, and it gives us the ability to have loosely coupled components and classes. 3 different types of dependency injection: constructor, setter, and interface. If you've read the documentation, I'm sure you did, you're gonna see that they all say that the best practice is the constructor. Why?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask here. So,
Okay,
why-
okay.
I've read this, but
Okay, let's assume then. Okay, I'm with you. Let's assume that we did have this declaration, right? It is valid. Okay, this is valid. I guess, right? This is gonna work. There is one single problem here. Let's imagine, right? Let me create a test class. Okay, let me create a test class. Cool, here, add. Okay, great. Let me initialize one user API. I can't I? That's perfect. I'm not going to declare it as an object. The issue here is that, okay, the code you just written, if you do it that way, doesn't really tell you that in order for this to work properly, you have to give to this API, to this class, something which is mandatory. So I can do this, can't I? What's going to happen? I'm going to have a null pointer exception, right?
yeah.
So if I was writing my code as a framework, I would do it that way, okay?
Okay.
So the answer, it's like good karate. It's inside you. Cool. So let me go back and put this in place because it was really great to see this code. Great. So we mentioned also, the inversion of control, right? Which is essentially the fact that when we write the code for a framework, this code isn't really extending the framework itself. It is like a configuration, right? It tells what we write is gonna actually do. Okay. In other terms, if we were to write the framework, this is the way that we would actually do so. Okay.
Okay. So we could do this without the framework, right?
Indeed.
How?
Next session.
Okay.
Cool. Cool. This is the Spring container as well, okay, that we just mentioned, right? That are parts of 6 well-defined module categories: data access, web, AOP aspects, instrumentation, messaging, and the core container. Okay? Cool. I've got some other questions now, okay? You've done really good work. as far as I can
Oh,
see.
thank you. At
Okay.
least it's working. So
Oh no, it's working well, right?
whether you think that it was not a good work, I had to deliver, so it's working.
Okay. So I've seen that you added, this the resource about addresses, which is great. How about testing? Did you write in testing code?
Yeah, I have implemented some unit tests.
Can you help me
here.
with this?
Yep.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm not the test expert here, so
come on now.
no worries,
Come
no
on
worries,
now.
no worries. I can help you. So can you please tell me what you have done here?
Okay, so this is an integration test. I have
Okay.
done some unit tests, but here I have done some.
Can I change something? Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, it's better now.
Okay. But we're not using real data here, so.
Okay, with you. Let's go.
Okay. So I used Spring Boot test. This was very useful for me because I can start the application from inside the test, which means that I don't need to go there and probably, try to find a solution on how to start. A very interesting part is this one, which the random port. So I can start, by default, my application starts in 8080, but it's configurable. However, with this one, I can start it in a random port, and I can have a test bin, which is the test resting blade, which actually has the base URL there, which is actually localhost plus the port that has been assigned here. So all I need there is to go and have the relative URL. An interesting part, which we can also see, is that even in some cases we can reuse some of the bins of the application. So I have used the repository from JPA, where I could easily insert data into the database. So if you later go there and make a change, for example, in the domain object, and I cannot save it in the database, I will have compilation issues there, so you will be able to find it quicker. And of course, I can reuse the DTOs here for request and also the response. And
You use Spock, right?
I have used Spock, yeah. Why?
I don't know why. Can you please help me?
Yeah, so I like it. I like it, let's say, more than JUnit. And the reason for this is that it uses Groovy, which is actually an easier way to implement some test code. But also, I just use one dependency. So I have Spock and I have my testing framework and my mocking API, my mocking library, all in one. One of them to rule them all,
Cool stuff.
Right. So I don't need to go there and try to find JUnit, Mockito, and find the versions and to maintain two different things. And of course, I can use it and for any kind of test, unit, integration, whatever. And it can organize my test in a BDD way, let's say, something that can be more readable.
So this test is gonna start the container. It's gonna do that. Let's say all the magic of the wiring,
exactly.
right? And it's gonna invoke the actual API.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I can actually do this with Spock. Thank you, Costa.
Yeah, actually, it's not Spock. It's the Spring Boot test. So if
You're now becoming
yeah,
you are now becoming my coach.
your
Thank you.
code, and actually, you can use it with any framework that you want. I mean, any Java framework.
Is it gonna work?
Yep.
It's
You
gonna,
wanna give it-
fail or success?
This one is going.
Now it's gonna be success. Costas. But let's wait before running.
The problem is in the first. It's 26 with the data, not here.
The spec was correct. Oh, cool. So do you mean, okay, this is an integration test, it runs a container, you can test if it's going to start. Great. Does this mean that I don't need any unit tests?
No.
Ah, okay.
No, because
Elaborate,
this is not the scope for what unit tests are doing. Actually, we need unit tests because we want to have, let's say, tests in a specific part of the code inside the method, of course, and we want to cover. And here we want to see that the integrated part, the API, is working correct. But we don't want to replicate tests that we have in unit tests and replicate them
Why?
as part of.
It's better to use unit tests for that way?
Actually, it's better to have this test pyramid that
Okay.
also many unit tests and then few integration tests and even fewer end-to-end tests because we need to consider CI/CD. We need to be able, let's say, to go fast. And if you go here, then tests are going to be slower because it starts the whole application context.
I see. So we were going to ask for more money otherwise.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That we don't have.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yet.
Cool. Another thing that I did, you didn't showcase is about using starter dependencies. I saw this happen, right? I mean, why did you use starter with dependencies?
I told you before I read it in the guide.
Okay, cool. So do you actually know how starter dependencies work?
I can guess some things, but I think that not in detail. I mean.
Okay. Let me help you on this one. So starter dependency, the word starter is for starters like you. Just kidding. No, is that it has whatever you actually want to incorporate that dependency across along with all other libraries for this particularly function to start. Okay. So let me try and do this one here. Let me try and see GitHub here. Not the Agile Authors one, but the Spring Boot one. Okay, main. Okay, there you go. Not bookmarked. I'm not going to showcase the main one because yesterday they changed it. Okay, we're using 6.2. That's great. Cool. So if you outline all these different starter dependencies, what you will see is that you have for all different areas. Okay, let me take as an example something that we commonly use, which is the JPA. Let me check what we have here. Actually, okay, we've got the web. Let me check the web. Great. So what it actually has inside is the required dependencies that you want for your project. Okay. And apart from this, you will see that there is also the Spring Boot starter dependencies here. So what you've done here is a bit of redundant. You don't really need it. Okay. So let me follow this one here. I will see because this is the compiled version that I can see. The Spring Boot starter. If I go here, there is something very important for the whole ecosystem, the auto-configure one. Okay. And why it is very important? If I go back to the Spring application, you will see that all it does just says run. It's a main function. Okay. The thing is that the Spring Boot application here, annotation, what hides behind, is this annotation, which is the enable auto configuration. You will see the packaging. Can you see the packaging? Yeah. Even the guys in the back, which is auto configure. Cool. So if I visit enable auto configuration, okay, it it imports auto configuration import selector as well, things that are going to be bootstrapped. Okay, that's cool. And let me go back here because what we will see is that if I read here what it does, it says that auto configuration classes are regularly. Oh, let me highlight. This is going to be better, I guess. Are regularly. Scrolling here, okay, and there you go. Regular Spring configuration bins. We know about configuration, right? You can define configuration bins that are going to be taken initially when the Spring Boot is being initialized. What it does, it says that these are located using the Spring Factories loader. Okay, cool. Let me open the Spring Factories loader. Okay. perhaps take some time. It searches. Is it up here somewhere? There you go. Thank you, Yanni. Okay, so if you read here what it does,
He was your coach, right?
he learned.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you read the documentation, what it says, right, is that you will encounter factories, resource locations within that class path, okay? So let me try and find some. Oops, Control O now. So there is one, this one, I guess, cool, that declares what the enable auto configuration will try to bootstrap, right?
Okay.
So as an example, do we have Cassandra? We don't.
Okay.
And since we have conditional on class, it's not going to be bootstrapped. Okay? If I go back, are we using data source? It is. Is it within the dependencies of our project? Let me check the data source now. Okay, data source configuration. Of course, it is going to be initialized because the embedded database type, which is part of which dependency, the Spring DDBC, which comes along with the rest of the dependencies of the project, are going to be there.
Okay.
And this is how all these different libraries of Spring Boot are going to be initialized by this magic. So there's no magic.
So all I need is just to have the dependency there.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you want to write your own library, since your own library is not going to follow the same packaging pattern, so the base package that we have here is not going to be the same.
Okay.
All you have to do is do what? Create a meta in Spring Factories, declare the property, and create your auto configuration. And this will work.
Okay. Interesting.
Cool?
And I can override the default?
You can,
Okay.
but don't do it. Cool. How much time do we have? 10 minutes only. And how much time do we need for questions?
Well, it depends. If you want Q&A, we'll take that now.
Do you want questions? Are we going to have questions?
Otherwise, throughout coffee break.
Cool. So let me continue then. So what did you witness today, right? I think that we did reach the end of the script that we have. I don't know if you enjoyed it. We enjoyed it a lot, as always. What you witnessed today is what we actually do, as Agile Actors chapters, right? It was a simulation, not only of a code. Huh?
Yeah, somehow.
Somehow. Yeah, it was something like, we do this, we might do this as a coach and the coachee. We might do this as people working together. We might do this, this could probably be, I think I've done it, right? It can be a class, right? It can be a regular Friday, evening session that we do in order to share, best practices and things that we learn. Because like I said before, I opened the documentation of Spring Boot last night, and the Spring Factories has actually changed on version 2.7, right? So I kept the previous version for this presentation. Otherwise, it would be something to release on the same day of production, and it was going to be risky. The numbers are indicative, but very close. So we've done 50 hours of internal trainings, and we deliver internal trainings with the Agile Actors with that way, okay? We do internal meetups, where people, from each chapter can present, stuff that they've done. And we also done more than 20 hours of workshops of this type. We want to start, for the goal of trying to be able to learn better, even, for ourselves. We want to start sharing our own training material and libraries with the community, right? So if you visit our GitHub account in Agile Actors, it's still small, but it's growing. And we're very close in launching one library, which offers the ability for CRUD APIs in Spring Boot applications out of the box. It's very close. It's not final yet. Okay. You can also visit our YouTube account in Agile Actors, so that you can see his face. So, just before close, and that's why I said that this session, it's not about technology, right? Because our part of our DNA is to learn how to learn, to share, care, and build true relationships with the people you work with. That was all about. Thank you.
We did say 10 minutes. You guys wrapped up in 5. Thank you very much. That was an awesome presentation.
There must be a question. There must be at
Any
least one.
questions? Any? No, it was all very clear, or they want to grab you
There must
later.
be one. Why did you finish 5 minutes earlier?
Go on, any questions? Help me out here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining because it was our first time you're delivering this script. And there was a lot of improvised, trust me.
I would say you guys are pros with a presentation like this one.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for joining.